Instead of just banging on people, we're here to solve issues. So let's solve this Giants mess. They're bad. The O-line's bad. Saquon's hurt again. Daniel Jones is overpaid and pretty mediocre. All right, we know that. I could spend the next 15 minutes banging on everybody. We know that. What do? Well, here's the silver lining. Bad means a better draft pick, and it's the best college quarterback draft class I've ever seen. I would draft another quarterback. I'll get to what you do with Daniel Jones in a minute. Now, you could also move down in the draft. You know, quarterbacks are gold bars. If you end up with a 6th-worst record, and if you look at your schedule, that's where you could be. You could absolutely move back, get seconds, thirds, fourths, whatevs. A lot of teams may do that at the top. But this roster, receiving group, offensive line, quarterback, this ain't it. Okay, so, and here's why I would draft another quarterback. And it sounds radical, and again, I'll get into the Daniel Jones component later. There's at least 8 teams. I count 8 teams in the NFC. Now, the AFC is a much better quarterback conference, and the New York Giants have Super Bowls. The goal here, you're not the Mets, you're the Yankees, right? You don't put up wild card pennants. You're the Giants. You want to win a Super Bowl. So the AFC is a much better quarterback conference than the NFC, and I counted this morning 8 NFC teams that have a better quarterback. Philly, Dallas, Arizona Rams, Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Seattle Saints. That's 9. So Brock Purdy, I don't know if you include him. It's a small sample size, but to this point, he's absolutely better than Daniel Jones. So that's 9. We'll put in San Francisco. You know, you say, what about Geno Smith? I don't know. Last 2 years, I look at the numbers. He's better than Daniel Jones. And then you also have 3 other teams just in the NFC that are likely to draft quarterbacks in the first round, and they're all better prospects than Daniel Jones: Bears, Atlanta, Tampa. And they'll have a 4-year runway minimum to load up on free agents. So 9 plus 3 is 12. There's 16 teams in the NFC. They either have more cap space and a more talented quarterback prospect, or about the same cap space and a better quarterback. That's in the weaker conference. This ain't it. You got to take a radical swing, and I don't think it's radical. Folks, Brian Daboll can't solve this. Like in Buffalo, he went there, and every year Josh Allen got better because Josh Allen had an enormous ceiling. He made Daniel Jones better. Didn't make him great. He didn't make him very good. He made him better. Better is probably what he is. So if Daboll can't solve this, and he's considered a top 6 or 7 offensive guy in this league, an offensive guy can't solve it. So there's always, now we get to the Daniel Jones part. Listen, there's always desperate NFL teams. Remember, Daniel Jones is big, they say he's smart, and he's athletic, and you can get out of the contract in 2025. You can absolutely move Daniel Jones. You may not get what you want. You reached for him at a number 6 pick in the first round. Maybe you only get a 3rd or a 4th rounder. But the Niners moved Trey Lance. You don't think the Giants can move a guy that made the playoffs last year? He made the playoffs last year. You can move Daniel Jones. And all the top 5 prospects this year are considered better prospects than Daniel Jones was. So if you're in a league and you have the 20 to 23rd best quarterback, and now he's expensive, the good news is the quarterback draft class is really strong. You can move him, get out of that contract, but this isn't working. I could spend all day banging on the O-line and banging on the receivers and banging on Daniel Jones. I like some of the defense. It's not working. And your standard for the New York Giants isn't putting up wild card banners. Parcells, Coughlin, Eli, Phil Simms, Strahan, Lawrence Taylor. Way, way, way up there. A better history than about 5 teams in the NFL. Okay, you're not the Jags here. You're not the Falcons here. You're not the Bears here. Bears are still celebrating one championship team 30-plus years ago. It's not who you are. I feel kind of bad for him. He didn't draft himself at 6. He didn't give himself the bag. He didn't build this offensive line. He didn't hire Gettleman. I can feel sympathy for what Justin Fields is going through. I can feel sympathy for what Daniel Jones is going through. But this isn't working. So let's take a swing that may be viewed as radical. No, it's not. Arizona moved off a quarterback, got Kyler Murray. It's not that radical. It's not that radical at all. People do it all the time. All right, so what do we make of the Seahawks? I'm not sure how great Geno Smith is. I mean, they got 13 first downs and averaged 6 yards a pass. Barely had the football 24 minutes. How good is Geno Smith? I don't know. But Seattle has smartly built a roster that is not Geno Smith dependent. I mean, they already had a good young running back. And yet in the second round this year, they went and got another running back. They already had Lockett, DK Metcalf at receiver. And yet in the first round, they went and got another receiver. Pete Carroll's been in Seattle, 14 years? This is the fourth version of his Seahawks. Most coaches, good coaches, struggle to pivot once or twice. He's pivoted 4 times. There was the 7-9 pre-Russell Wilson Seahawks. For the record, one of those teams got into the playoffs and won a playoff game. That was the weakest version. Then there was, Legion of Boom, Russell in his prime, 2 Super Bowl appearances. Then there was the defense is aging, guys get banged up, let's let Russ cook. This is still a pretty consistent playoff team. And then there's this version. We don't have a star quarterback, but we got away from the big paycheck. We got draft capital for Geno Smith. Let's get young, hit on some draft picks, rebuild the defense. And oh, by the way, this version, all 4 have made the playoffs with Pete. The pre-Russ, Russ in his prime, let Russ cook, and see ya, Russ. They've all made the playoffs. Pete Carroll knows how to coach. I was very hard on him during the last few years of Russ and Pete Carroll. I was clearly wrong. He saw things with Russ declining that worried him. But in all 4 versions of Pete Carroll's Seahawks, they've all made the playoffs. That is remarkable. I mean, literally, Belichick can't pivot off Brady. The greatest coach ever can't make a second pivot. Can't make a second one. Pete's on his 4th. And Pete, interesting, because Pete's always been viewed. I've had GMs and coaches say this. He's quirky. He's West Coast. He's unique. Whatever it is, here's what I know is true. Pete is great with young players. He and Jimmy Johnson were great with young players and great understanding personnel and the strengths and the weaknesses of those players. Now, Pete can struggle sometimes with older players who, get entitled. They've heard the stories before from Pete. But Pete and Jimmy Johnson are on a very short list all time. Were the best college coach when they were in it and a top 1 or 2 coach in the NFL when they were in it. That is rarefied air. And so I thought Pete was too tough on Russ, should have let Russ cook. And the truth is, Russ simmering was probably better than Russ cooking. In the end, 4 different versions of Pete Seahawks, all 4 have made the playoffs. And this team, they're just kids. How about this? Huskies, Seahawks win the national championship Super Bowl. When you're from the Northwest, we've had very few years when everything clicks. They took our Sonics. You know what I mean? The Mariners are mostly down. The Huskies are the best offense in the country. And Seattle is something. I don't know exactly what. But they're young. They're getting better every weekend. They already won in Detroit. They won in the East Coast. Just saying, 4 pivots. Each one has been a playoff team. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.